Hello, and welcome to the episode of In the Trench with Gang Green. I'm your host, Blair, also known as Bubbs. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Cowboys writer for Blog and the Boys, Tony Catalina. Tony, thanks so much for coming on. How's it going, man?
It's good, man. I'm glad. I appreciate you having me on here.
Yep, looking forward to getting into this video here. Looking forward to breaking down the Jets versus Cowboys week 2 matchup. Both teams coming off of big wins week 1. Both kind of got the job done very differently. Cowboys, it was a blowout from the start, 40-0 against the Giants, and the Jets, it was a roller coaster ride, obviously with Rodgers unfortunately going down, but they found a way to get the job done on a walk-off punt return from the undrafted free agent Xavier Gipson. So we're gonna be breaking off everything down in this matchup for what to expect come Sunday in Arlington, Texas, against the Cowboys. Jets' first road matchup of the season, obviously the Cowboys home opener. So I wanted to start up today, Tony, just kind of asking you your thoughts, kind of a two-part question. Your thoughts on your final takeaways from last week's win for Dallas. What do you expect this week coming into this game as a overview of the kind of the roster and what to expect from the guys? And then just from an outside fan perspective, your thoughts on the devastating Aaron Rodgers injury that the Jets obviously suffered on Monday night.
Yeah, as far as the Cowboys go in week 1, this defensive performance was kind of what a lot of Cowboys fans, Cowboys media thought was possible. I don't know if anybody actually believed that this would be the outcome week 1. That 40-0 route is it's eyebrow raising, right? I mean, that was the
Mhm.
type of performance that you don't see too often in the NFL. But I think when you look at Micah Parsons, some of the moves they've made, whether it be in the draft or in free agency, Cowboys defense looks to be the strongest part of this offense, and I mean, excuse me, of this team. And so that was kind of a culmination of a lot of work in the training camp that I think many people felt had the possibility, but still it was surprising nonetheless. And as far as an outside perspective, when we look at the Jets here, and it's the conversation that we've had all week, is this Jets defense is no joke, right? Like, I think there is a lot of mutual respect between Cowboys, defensive unit and the
Yep.
Jets defensive unit. When it comes to Sauce Gardner and it comes to, Quinn Williams, these guys, like, there's a lot of respect there. So nobody in Dallas is expecting this to be an easy match, whether it's Zach Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, that injury changes the dynamic on the offensive side of the ball a little bit there. So, but when you look at it and you kind of break down the tape here, Zach Wilson's best friend is going to be Dalvin Cook, and it's going to be Breece Hall, and that's what we're expecting. We're expecting to be force fed, the football and the
Yep.
running game. That was our weakness last year, and if the Jets are able to get traction on the ground, I don't know if it really matters if it's Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. I think the way they go about it may be differently, but nobody's looking at this Jets game like it's a walk in the park.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. I think, as you mentioned, you nail it right on the head from a running back perspective for the Jets. I mean, we rushed for over 170 yards last week. Breece Hall, coming off the torn ACL, looked like the Breece Hall that he looked like prior to the injury last year in Denver that, closed out, unfortunately, his rookie season. But kind of going back to the defense side of the football for a second, obviously, Dan Quinn, since taking over a couple years ago, has done, I mean, a phenomenal job. Used to be the weakness of the team. Now it's one of their biggest strengths. How do you expect them to approach Zach Wilson from a passing perspective? Obviously, having a priority on stopping the run, but how do you expect them? Do you see them expecting them to stack the box, forcing him to throw? Where at times he in the pocket he gets stuck on one read, sometimes panics at time. How do you see them attacking Zach Wilson with blitzes? How do you see them approaching that?
I think you're kind of on it there. When you look at the Cowboys defense, a lot of people look at the pass rush and say, okay, this might be the strength of the unit. But a lot of people here in Cowboys Nation know that our secondary, our safeties, and our corners specifically feel like some of the best ball players we have on the team, whether it's Ron Curse, looks like Donovan Wilson's coming back. So Malik Hooker just got paid. And these are guys that I say all to say, they're comfortable kind of going man on the back end. We have respect for Garrett Wilson, and we know
Mhm.
Alan Lazard, and there's guys that can make plays. But I think what the Cowboys are going to end up doing is loading the box, like you mentioned, going big in the interior with Jonathan Hankins. See if we can get Mozzie Smith in the mix there in the inside, Leighton Vander Esch in. I think they're going to try to force the game into Zach Wilson's hands. Now, obviously, if
Mhm.
Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, and these guys are able to get 4 or 5 a clip every time they touch the football, you don't have to force the Zach Wilson issue there. So I think that's what the Cowboys are going to try to do. Try to get him in second and long, third and distance type situations. Get Zach Wilson, dropping back and kind of letting this pass rush kind of go at it, and I think you would agree here, and I would love to hear your perspective on it. The weak point of the Jets probably is the offensive line, and one of our strengths is the defensive line. So anytime that Zach Wilson ends up in, long, medium, long situations, the Cowboys going to feel really good about that.
Yeah, totally. And especially our tackles are going to obviously, like you mentioned, facing up against Parsons, they're going to have their hand full. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line last week was not great in pass protection. That was the weakness. I thought run blocking, they were solid, especially the tight ends. The Jets Ruckert, I thought, had a great game, who stepped up in a big way, finally getting a big role this year after kind of having a redshirt year last year in his rookie season. But yeah, for both teams, I think that the strength for both teams on defense is certainly in the trenches. And well, not so much the strength, but for the Jets it is, but obviously both teams have excellent secondaries as well. But going up against these both offensive lines, I think both teams will have their handful in a way with both these defensive lines being as good as they are. You mentioned a little bit about the secondary. How excited are you to see? I'm looking forward to it to see, a little bit of that Garrett Wilson, Trayvon Diggs matchup, depending on obviously how much they line up against each other. But how much are you looking forward to seeing those two guys go up against each other
I mean,
on Sunday?
that's like what you're a fan of, right? Like Garrett
Yeah,
Wilson, a young star in this league, Trayvon Diggs, obviously a star and just got paid. So these are the matchups, these are box office things. And, even if, they don't travel and it's Stephon Gilmore on the other side, if Garrett Wilson's got to get matched up there, that's a fun
yeah,
matchup on my perspective as well. So, Garrett Wilson is a guy who can change a game. We saw the play he made in the end zone for a touchdown last week. Like this guy, it's going to be about volume, right? Just give
yeah.
him as many touches as you can. Try to get the ball to him in space, whatever you can do to get the football in his hands. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch, and I'm intrigued to see how Nathaniel Hackett kind of operates and manufactures those touches.
Yeah, totally. And I think, from a Jets perspective, and Zach Wilson, kind of going back to what you mentioned with the defense line for the Cowboys, protection up front, giving him time in the pocket, allowing him to get the ball to Garrett Wilson, because Garrett Wilson's a guy, you probably see it similar in like a CeeDee Lamb where 8-10 catches per game type guy. That's got to be the volume. It can't be 4 to 6 catches. It's got to be 8-10 catches a game, be the focal point of the offense, be the number one guy. Hopefully Zach gets him involved. Hopefully he has the time in the pocket. So we'll definitely see. Kind of shifting over to the offense for the Cowboys, which, I think week one we saw a whole lot of running because they were winning 40-0. It was a blowout, so there was no need to pass. Do you expect to see a change in more, completions to CeeDee Lamb, see him more involved? Do you expect to see that in week two and less of a focus on the run because it was a blowout?
Yeah, I think last week, due to weather, due to the score,
Yeah.
due to the situation, we didn't really get a chance to see Mike McCarthy, really at the helm do what he has been talking about all off season. So they bring in what they call the Texas Coast with, the West Coast principles and, doing a little differently that favors Dak Prescott in this offense. So I think your guess is as good as mine. I know people around here are excited to see what it looks like. And, in the dome controlled environment, weather won't be a problem. We're
Yeah.
going to really get to see a little bit more of what this looks like. So, yes, I think the running game will be a part of the dynamic, but you'll see a lot of play actions. You'll see boots off of that. The Cowboys are much more about tempo, getting the ball out quick, getting out and timing. So, those are the things that I'm interested to see. And, we didn't really get a real good look at that in week one because the game kind of spiraled out in a
Yeah.
positive manner for us. And you don't complain about it, but it's just another question mark we have heading into week two.
Yeah. And one of the points I wanted to, ask too is, Dak Prescott, who actually, yes, just yesterday I saw that, he's the longest tenured in the NFL quarterback. I've always been very high on Dak. I think he's gotten a lot of, I don't know if you want to say hate over the years, but maybe some of over the, that Cowboys, national, media, all that stuff. A lot of people tend to any team tend to gear the hate towards the quarterback, but he did have 15 interceptions last year. Do you expect to see him cleaning that up this season? And that last year was kind of a 1-year thing, 12 games, was hurt. Just had a little bit of an off year in terms of the turnovers. Do you expect him to see it, turn around this season?
I think everybody here believes that was an outlier. It's not really been
Mhm.
his history. He's not really careless with the football. He's always been a calculated risk taker, right? He's not afraid to take the shot. He's not afraid to throw it in double coverage and tight throws. But last year, it just felt like, and it's probably part of the reason why Kellen Moore isn't here, is the communication between what a wide receiver needed to do, what the route tree looked like. There was too many option routes. There were times when Dak was pressing, of course, and he was injured, and there were some games where he was off. But with this new Mike McCarthy system, with the bang bang, get the ball out, one step, two step drops, getting the ball out in the shotgun, this is a quarterback friendly offense more so than he's ever been in. Dak Prescott, I'm with you. I appreciate you saying you respect the guy and think he takes too much heat, because I think that is part of the national narrative where listen, criticism, if it's fair, is totally fine. It's part of the job description. It just feels like his standard and how he gets viewed isn't quite fair. I mean, you look at a guy like Josh Allen when he had 4 turnovers against you guys, and the
Yep.
conversation is he needs more weapons, right? Well, he's got Stephon Diggs, he's got James Cook, he's got guys there. And if Dak does that, then it's leads Sports Center, and he's got a problem, and it's an issue. So I don't think it's quite fair, but I think the people who know ball, and he's a litmus test. The people that know ball understand that Dak Prescott's a solid to very good quarterback in this league.
Yeah, definitely. It's just interesting, like you mentioned. It is definitely interesting to see all the reactions. But yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, who's one of the top, or a lot of people think is one of the top quarterbacks in the game, had 4 turnovers, and 3 of those were to Jordan Whitehead, who had the game of his life at safety, had a big game. So yeah, I'm expecting a bounce back season from Dak. I think again he's put together a very solid career, and you really question where the Cowboys would be without him, because they've had consistent quarterback play since he's gone into the league, and that's something that a lot of other teams would like to have. So yeah, certainly the quarterback's one of the strengths there. Moving on to the receiver spot. Just quickly, Cooks popped up on the injury report. Is he expected to play this week?
He's real iffy. I know it's a grade 1 MCL strain. He didn't come out. He played the whole game. Even after the game Sunday night, they said they got out of the game clean. So it wasn't even on their radar of injuries. He's real limited. I wonder if you would ask me if I was a betting man, I'd bet he probably doesn't go. But I think it may be one game that he ends up missing. But it's unfortunate because he's obviously a big part of this offense.
Yeah, definitely. And then who would, before we kind of get to CeeDee Lamb, who's the main, obviously the number 1, who would you expect to fill into Cooks's place as kind of the number 2?
It would be Michael Gallup, and Michael
Okay.
Gallup is totally formidable as a wide receiver too. Coming off the injury, he didn't trust it last year with the ACL. This
Yep.
year, he talked about confidence. He's playing freely, so I think a lot of people are excited about what he can do. And then just following up from that, Jalen Tolbert was by all estimations a failure last year. His rookie season was a non-factor, but he has done a complete 180 in year 2, and I think a lot of people are excited about what he can do in an NFL game too.
Yep, definitely. And I mean, yeah, Gallup obviously was hurt, and now he's coming back. So it's funny, he completely forgot him there when I was asking that question about Cooks. But anyway, moving on to CeeDee Lamb. Talked about a little bit about the Garrett Wilson Trayvon Diggs matchup. You now move on to a little Sauce CeeDee Lamb, which is another headline matchup. Just your expectations for that, and your thoughts on what we should see from CeeDee Lamb this year, who is just continuing to rise as one of the league's best.
I think you said it best there. He's rising. And I think this season is going to be another Pro Bowl type season, possibly in the conversation for all pro type of season. I will say this week, I expect it to be tough for him, right? I know that Sauce Gardner didn't have a great week 1. I know that the completion percentage, or like the passer rating, was like a 118. He ended up giving like 5 receptions, or whatever the case may be. I know the type of competitor guy like Sauce Gardner is. He's going to come out week 2, on fire, ready to prove and quiet any doubters. So it may not be a CeeDee Lamb game. Now, if it is, and CeeDee Lamb is able to go out there and put it on Sauce Gardner, I think we see an absolute bona fide star, right? Because I don't see Sauce Gardner going back-to-back games with a tough outing. So that is one of those matchups that's going to be really fun to watch. But over, the season, I expect, and many people expect, CeeDee Lamb to have a monster year.
Yeah, totally. And you're spot on with Sauce. I expect him to have a bounce back week. I mean, you could say how dominant he was last year. Last week was certainly one of his tougher weeks. Had, as you mentioned, the completions, and had a missed tackle or 2 as well on Diggs, which was tough. But you expect him to definitely bounce back and gets another big test here against a very good receiver. So closing out the offense before we just take a look at some of our final keys and in game prediction. Offensive line versus the Jets defense line. How do you feel this line stacks up against, similar to the Cowboys? I mean, you're looking at two of some of the best units in terms of defensive line for this. How do you feel they stack up against one of the best in the Jets?
It's going to be the biggest X factor for the Cowboys, right? We feel good. Tyron Smith held Kayvon Thibodeau to zero pressure, zero like anything in week one. So you feel really good about Tyron Smith. When he's healthy, he's one of the league's best left tackles. It's just been when and if he's healthy has been the question.
Yep.
Terrence Steele, they trust him. He just got paid at right tackle. Where the real question mark is going to be in the interior. Zach Martin's a future Hall of Famer, so that's not a problem. But left guard, where Tyler Smith looks like he may miss another game here. So it looks like he's a little further along. Looks like, and it's tough because Quentin Williams, the meat you guys have inside there is a problem. So Chuma Doga looks like he's in line for another starter left guard. And he had a tough matchup, last week, and he's gonna have another tough matchup here. So how does Tyler Biadasz, the center, and Chuma Doga handle the middle will tell a lot about this Cowboys team. And that's kind of where the big question mark is. Where people look at this Cowboys team in the week 2 matchup specifically and say, okay, defensively, Zach Wilson, we feel good about the matchup. We feel like our defense is going to be able to play well. But what does the offense look like, and specifically the offensive line? Because if Dak doesn't have time, if the runners don't have space to hit the holes here, it's gonna be a battle. It could end up being like a 13-10 final. Who
Yep.
knows? You know what I mean? So that's the number one question, because there is a ton of respect there for that the front seven of the Jets.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's funny. Chuma Doga brings back, the days of when he was with the Jets, and it was kind of a depth piece for us, but similar to how he's being used with you guys. So, kind of, shift into closing things out here with a final couple things here. Just what are your, I guess, biggest keys overall for this game for the Cowboys, and I'll give some of mine too for the Jets. What is some of yours, the biggest ones for Cowboys on both offense and defense going into this one?
Yeah, offensively is easy because I kind of touched on it. It's going to
Yep.
be about protecting Dak Prescott. It's going to be about opening up, running lanes for the running backs. And it's really just seeing the rhythm, because we didn't get a chance to see this offense have any type of rhythm last week. Dak only threw 21 passes, 143 yards, didn't really do much. That's not a Dak like, game. The weather was tough. The situations dictated the circumstance there. But so the question is, what do the Cowboys look like against probably the best defense they're going to face all season, right? So
Yep.
this is a game that if you're just a fan of the game, the X's and O's, and you're a film guy like I am, like you're watching the offense versus the defense matchup to see how this goes. On the other side, it's simple, right? You try to stop Dalvin Cook, you try to stop Breece Hall, you make them one-dimensional, put the game in Zach Wilson's hand. I know from studying the film, they didn't give Zach Wilson much of a leash. They didn't let him throw the ball too far downfield. Everything seemed to be like 7 yards and in on his passes. That's not a real great way to get Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and those guys involved. So you wonder if this game goes a situation or a type of way that they're going to force Zach Wilson to have to make plays. And that's kind of what the key is going to be. Put the ball in the second string quarterback's hands. He's certainly not Aaron Rodgers, but he
Yep.
doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers to beat us. So those are the couple of things. I think everybody has a plan, like Mike Tyson says, till he get punched in the mouth.
Yep.
And with the Cowboys, it's always some funny stuff. It's funny. As a Cowboys fan my whole life, you always see some guy have a star performance against the Cowboys. Some random obscure
Yep.
guy is going to come out and have a big game, and you're like, yeah, we didn't plan for this guy. So, like I said, some of the details are obvious, but it's going to come down to execution.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll be interesting to see, hopefully Hackett, who I have a lot more trust in than LaFleur, gets more out of Zach. But again, all he needs to be is just a game manager. And I think this team has a chance to still get to the postseason. I don't know how much further than that, but once you're in the dance, I guess anything's possible. But yeah, offensively, I would like to see too, just from for the Jets too, utilizing some of Zach's mobility, because he's not the best as, an overall, I guess, quarterback, if you want to call it. But if they utilize him, his mobility, give him some design runs, let him roll out of the pocket a little bit. He seems to be better when he's not thinking, in a way where he's not overthinking it, not overthinking his reads. And defensively, I think it's continuing to get pressure, because we had 5 sacks last week. We forced Josh Allen into some of those bad throws because we were getting in his face, and some of those overthrows getting to, the safeties, and similar to if we can approach that the same way towards Dak. So to close things out here, what is your prediction for this game? Kind of what are just your prediction and, score prediction, and who you got coming out on top?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I don't think that this game, like I mentioned, is going to be any type of runaway. I don't think that, the offense is going to be great because that's the respect I have for the Jets. But I do ultimately think the Cowboys have enough in the tank to pull out the win. I would say something to the tune of 20-13. I think Zach Wilson shows some things. I think ultimately it may not be enough, but it's enough to look at this Jets team from a Cowboys perspective and say, okay, they got enough talent here. They're going to be able to make, some noise and probably really mess some things up for some teams here. It's not Aaron Rodgers level, but I feel like that we'll walk out of this game saying, man, that Jets team's a full complete team here.
Yeah, I think it. I think you're kind of spot on there. I mean, from a Jets perspective, as much as some of the fan base, because the fan base has obviously been all over the place, rightfully so, with the disbelief and the emotions. But you got to rally around Zach. You got to buy into Zach. I mean, we're walking into a very tough road environment. Walking to a home opener, a great defense. It's going to be extremely tough. I think if they could find a way to get the run going, they have a chance. If they can find a way to get the turnovers, but my heart says Jets. My gut probably tells me Cowboys, but I guess we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, my gut probably tells me Cowboys, but I agree. I think it's probably going to be a close game. I think it's 9. I think the line's 9. I'd probably say
Yeah.
it's plus. I'd probably take the Jets to keep that close. I would assume that you view it the same way there.
Yeah, I mean, I had it 20-13. So if
Yeah.
the Jets are getting 9, they win against the spread there.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. So to close things out, tell everybody where they can find you. I know obviously doing your writing and stuff for the Cowboys and all the other stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So my main gig is over at Pro Football Network, but if you want Cowboys related stuff, which is more of a passion of mine, you can catch me over at Blogging the Boys and on Twitter at Tony_Catalina.
Yep, totally. Definitely check them out. Enjoy, reading all your stuff for the Cowboys, especially this week, getting ready for the game and kind of previewing what to expect from, what to watch for. So stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. Thank you so much again for stopping by and coming on. Enjoyed this. And we'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.